today's coffee conversation, I'm really excited. You know, Shantel and I just got back from our Costa Rica trip, and it was a whirlwind, and we made it back, and I'm so excited to join with you guys, because we're going to be talking about awakening our spiritual gifts. And man, we needed those spiritual gifts during our trip.
Yeah, we did.
Right? They were in use during our trip. So today we're going to be talking about what are the spiritual gifts. There's 6 primary spiritual gifts, how to find your spiritual gifts, how child experiences can indicate your gifts, how Reiki ties into it all, how shamanic Reiki ties into it, the difference between a spiritual gift and a spiritual burden. And we're going to get into all of the things. So I think we should just start off with the 101, like what are spiritual gifts? How can you identify them? What are they? And the easiest way I like to explain this is looking at our 6 primary senses. Well, 5 primary senses, and then we got this little extra one over here. So you can think about your spiritual gifts as like a reflection of what your innate spiritual gifts are. And so if you're clear seeing, clairvoyant, oftentimes we hear that one. That one's thrown around a lot in the spiritual communities. Clairvoyance is that clear seeing, but it can show up in so many different ways. Shantel, do you want to talk a little bit about how it can show up?
So when we're seeing, I liked where you were leading with how the 5 senses is a mirror of our spiritual gifts, right? So seeing, hearing, feeling, sight, all that, right? But seeing is when you're able to visualize through your third eye without using your natural eyes, but visualizing scenes almost like a movie or visions, however it appears, but it brings forward messages that we can utilize in our daily life to help us through life, to help us to understand on a deeper level of who we are, what we're going through, things like that. And so that is a very popular one because that's the one that most people are like they want that one. They're like, how can I open my third eye?
It's so true. So true. We hear that one a lot. Like, how do I develop my clairvoyance? And it's really cool because it can show up when you're doing Reiki sessions. It can show up when you are meditating. It can show up when you're doing shamanic. Like, it's very heightened when we're learning how to shamanic journey. But it can also show up when you're getting during the day. Like, oftentimes people get those little twinkles of light, and you're like, that's non-ordinary reality trying to communicate with me. That's something on the spiritual side trying to communicate with me. So, or seeing the auric field, anything that is using vision to see. So whether that is with your eyes closed and you're getting visions and images, or is it like during the day and you're getting little, like when I first started developing clairvoyance, because it's not my primary, it always showed up as little twinkles of light. And I was always like, oh, thanks for being here. I knew it was like my angels or my guides. And so I would get sparkles all the time. And now when I see sparks, it's oftentimes when I'm talking with someone about their spiritual work, and it's like an affirmation, like, oh yeah, we're on the right track. So know that it can show up in that way too. So
I think too, is nature. When you're connecting with nature, if you tune into, like I like to talk about like rock spirits and tree spirits and stuff, they will reveal their energy to you when you tune in to the vibration of nature. And so that's always fun when you're able to see a face, when you're able to see an image within nature itself, because they are communicating with you as well. So if you're out there, have fun. If you're at the park, you're sitting outside, you're looking out your window, tune into the nature around you and see what they have to say.
So one of the cool things on our Costa Rica trip is that we visited this place called La Paz Waterfall. And as many of you know, La Paz means peace. So we were visiting these peace waterfalls, and one of them was named Magic Waterfall. And
It was my favorite.
Shantel had like the best time there. And it really was enhancing that clairvoyance. I'd love for you to share that story because it's
Oh my gosh. So there is this huge waterfall, and what you're supposed to do is as it's flowing, you tune into one point. So you don't allow your eyes to go up and down with the water, but you just focus on one point for 1 minute. And then you shift your gaze to the jungle right next to it. But the jungle itself comes alive, and suddenly it is the waterfall. And so everything ripples, the leaves were waving, it was just so magical. And every time I was like so connecting to my inner child, so every time I did it, I was just cracking up. And then it was like, oh my gosh, can you guys see this? And I had all these strangers, I'm like, you gotta try this.
It
Not
was so
everyone
fun.
connected, but it was really fun.
Well,
I
and
love
part of
that
it,
one.
it was like I could do it and the people that we were with could do it. Some people just didn't think it was a big deal because it would have been like bloop, bloop, bloop. And
Yep.
Chantel was like for like a full minute, you know? And so she was just cracking up and she could see the face in the waterfall, like the nature was speaking to her, you know, like it was just really cool to
Yeah,
watch
there
her.
was so many faces, so much going on in that imagery. I loved it.
Do
So
you
much
find
magic in
that
it.
is clairvoyance? Do you find that as your primary? Is that what you would consider your primary?
I consider that to be, I would say, my primary. It's the one that showed up first for me,
Mhm.
but I am like, I can hear and definitely sense. I'm
Yeah.
very much like I sense and I connect to the emotions of,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm very visual.
Okay, cool. Well, let's talk about that one next, clairsentience. It's also another one that is thrown around a lot in the spiritual communities is the clairsentience. That's the clear feeling, the empathy, right? So if you're feeling the energy of a room, if you're feeling the vibe of a person, if you're getting that gut instinct, that's clairsentience. And it also is when you feel like a feather brush up against you during meditation or some type of tangible feeling. You're scanning someone with Reiki, you're noticing, oh, there's a rough patch. What this energy over here? And so it can show up in multiple ways, but most often people think of it as that empathy connection. And so when you're working on someone, you're feeling like, oh, are you feeling a lot of anxiety right now? Because now I'm feeling it. That's empathy, right? There's that
Very much.
clairsentience. And this one is really dynamic, and the fact that it can show up in multiple ways, that it's all like one of the spiritual gifts that people want to strive for and develop, and also the one that are like, how can I turn it off? How can I get rid of it? Because it so can be overwhelming to feel everyone's stuff and everyone's situation.
Mm-hmm. It really can, because if we're not doing our protection and everything, and you walk into a room full of people and suddenly you're tuning into the energy of everyone, that can be really overwhelming. So it is important to be able to put up those blockers for ourselves, for our own protection. And then you tune in where you want to tune in, you know? So yeah, it's good. It's good to have all the tools in the toolbox for sure.
Right. Well, and I feel like with clairsentience, we really need to learn, and this is something that we do in our courses, is how do we put it on a barometer? I want to be
Mm-hmm.
100% on right now. I want to be 75% on right now. I want to be 5% on right now versus always open and available. We need to learn how to control it so that
Mm-hmm.
one, there's a lot of people, especially the young ones that are coming in 100% on all of the time, and they are so isolated. They're sheltering themselves because they can't even go to the grocery store because it's so engaged all the time.
All the time.
All the time,
Yeah.
right? And then we have these students who are, you know, our age and above that are like, how do I turn it on? I want to feel more. And I'm like, it's great. And we'll get there and we'll teach you the techniques on how to do that. One of my favorite ones is just learning how to make an energy ball, you know, feeling the energy from fingertip to fingertip, as well as feeling the heat, feeling the texture, noticing the color if you want to bring in that clairvoyance, making an energy ball. And then once you have an energy ball, give it a little squeeze and notice the resistance. That is a beautiful, easy tool to start developing that clairsentience, that clear feeling, that tangible clear feeling.
Yeah. And it is a fun one to play with. It reminds me of like when you're in the bubble bath and you
Yeah.
take the bubbles, and it's like that resistance. So if you are listening and you haven't felt that, that's kind of what it feels like to me. So try doing that technique and practice with it. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I love that one. And then we have another one that's really popular that we hear a lot about, but maybe not as often as clairvoyance and clairsentience, is clairaudience. the clear hearing. And I feel like that was probably my most dominant one as a child, is that I can hear spirits, I can hear voices, I can pick up on communication from the other side. Let's put it that way. So like my earliest memories is me hanging out in the Catholic Church and talking to all the statues because I was having two-way conversations, and folks would just leave me alone because I was doing my thing, praying with the statues, but I was like having dialogue, and luckily I was in a very fairly open-minded congregation, and it was like, cool, she's just doing her spiritual mystical thing over there, and it worked for me. But that clairaudience can come through in a lot of different ways. It can come through as like picking up a single word. It can be picking up a sentence. It can be a song lyric. Oftentimes people get songs come through, and that's the way spirit's going to communicate. And it's like they're telling you things that are how you would understand it. Right. So if you're like, I don't know what this song is, but this song came through, and then you give it to your client and they're like, oh my gosh, that was my dad's favorite song and he died last year. And it's like, yeah. So we don't necessarily always know what the meaning and purpose of the messages are if we're in a client session. So keep that in mind. What do you have to add to that, Shantel?
I think too with that, so that isn't always my my strong suit is the hearing of spirit, but when it does come through, it is pretty profound. But when you're listening to to radio, to like you're listening to music, a lot of times messages come that way as well. So if you're, I listen to music when I take a shower and stuff, and then certain songs come on and it connects, like it hits me in a different way. I know that's a message for me. So I will stop and listen to the lyrics and do all that. And but to be honest, like the shower for me is a very big download like station. I don't know why. I get into the shower and suddenly it's like there's so many like messages for me. But I think anytime we can connect to our surroundings and everything, it's really it can really help us to develop into the more advanced clairs, right? And so tuning into music, like I said earlier, nature, all that kind of stuff, when the wind blows, when you hear birds chirp, that's messages for us in the moment. So taking the time to be like, what am I thinking about doing, talking about, it can be giving us confirmation of what we're doing. So if we're stuck like in a limbo phase, or we're just confused about something, we're asking spirit, like, give me a message. And then suddenly birds are chirping for you, or, you have other noises, wind, chimes, all that coming through. Take a moment to tune into that.
Yeah, it reminds me of a time when I was in Japan. I was on a Reiki pilgrimage with Bruce Taylor. He's got another pilgrimage. If you're interested, definitely check it out. It looks amazing. But I was sitting in this, we were walking through these temples, and it was a big, beautiful, meditation garden, and the monks had, taken the little rakes, and it's all beautiful and perfect. And all I'm hearing is the rocks, like the big boulder rocks and the smaller rocks that were all placed very strategically for this meditation garden. And all I can hear is them yelling. Like they're arguing with each other. Like the rocks are arguing. And, it's like the people who are coming in and out were really loud. And, so, you're supposed to be meditating, and Bruce is all about like, let's meditate to fully clear the mind and to come to this higher place. And I'm like, but the rocks are arguing. This one's arguing that it can't be a tiger because it looks like that. It was just so humorous to me. I'm sitting there laughing, and I'm like, okay, I get it. Like, I get that this is not meditation, though I am tuning into my spiritual gifts. And I find it humorous. And in the moment, I was just taking what it was for what it was. And I'm very much an animist, and that means that everything has energy. When we look at Reiki, that key is so much about life force energy, meaning energy within everything. It's not just who is alive, me, the dog, the carrot, like things that are growing and have like energy to it. It's everything. All of
Everything.
it's everything. Energy is everywhere. And so here I am hearing and having communication with these inanimate objects, these rocks and boulders that have been on display for probably hundreds of years. And they're getting projected, like by the title of the garden was like something about a tiger, and they're having this conversation about this topic. And for me to go like, this is me tuning into my animist nature. I am an animist, meaning I believe in this dialogue as happening for realsies.
Yes,
and
yes.
and it's okay if no one else gets that, but it really clearly showed so much about my clairaudience gifts, because this is when I can walk through the forest and I can talk to the trees, or I can talk to the frog, or and it's just being really in tune with nature and letting what their voices come forward.
Yeah, I can, in Costa Rica, there was this huge bamboo tree. Like it was a cluster. Remember that tree? It was this
Yes.
huge cluster. And from the top of the shala where we were doing yoga, I was immediately connected to that. And then one day it just called to me, like, and I meditated on it. And then all these monkeys started coming through it. And I was the only one because I was sitting up and I was like totally in tune to this bamboo cluster of trees and the wisdom that they had to share. And then all this nature came out. And when I left, I was like, I need pictures. I need to go connect. And I went down there and I was like third eye to this tree and hugging it. But what was really interesting was on the outside, it was so strong and structured and beautiful and green. But inside, it was like all the dead had fallen and created this structure within that was all the chaos of what we go. And that's what it represented, like that animism, right? Where we have the inside that can have so much chaos, but it's still the building blocks of the beauty on the outside. And I connected to that so strongly. And I was just like, I can't even leave without touching you. Like, I just need to go communicate and connect. And it was actually a beautiful moment.
And that's a beautiful example of like utilizing our spiritual gifts. One, having the tuning in, that clairsentience, that there is this beautiful bamboo trees that are calling you. You're feeling it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're able to go and let that bamboo speak to you. It communicates its message, its beauty. It's like, yes, there is this beautiful structure on the outside, and yet there's chaos on the inside, and there's a spiritual meaning to that. It drew you forward with reason and purpose. I love it.
And I think for a lot of people, it's time to tune in like that, and a lot of people are seeking it. But those who are, I feel like kind of on that tipping point of they don't know because they feel like I don't want to be silly, or I don't want to be judged, or I don't want people to think that I'm crazy because I'm talking to a tree. Go experience it. Don't worry about what anybody has to say or what their judgment is. Go experience it for yourself, because it is so enlightening and it's such a beautiful like connection that you don't want to miss it. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
I think this is when you start developing your spiritual gifts.
Yes.
Part of it is letting go of like the fear of judgment of others. We got to let that go so that
Mm-hmm.
we can trust our intuition. And it's that intuition that's going to drive us to the intention of developing our spiritual gifts. And I think that's the cool part, is that we're, as you say, yes, I am ready. Yes, I'm wanting to develop these. That's all that it takes. So much of the time is just letting your spirit guides, your healers, your support team in this non-ordinary reality. We talk a lot about this in our shamanic Reiki, is that we have these spirit teams, we have these guides and power animals, and they're going to put you in situations where your spiritual gifts can open and awaken. So some of it is just letting go of the fear, letting go of the judgment, letting go of this, oh, I can't do that. Like that negative self-talk is so important to let go of if you want to step into your true, authentic, higher self, the grandest version of who you are, who's fully in line with your spiritual gifts, and knowing that they're not going to look like anybody else's. we have such comparisonitis when it comes to, this is what I have, what do you have? And instead of going, look, these are my gifts and these are your gifts, let's work with them together. And as they overlap, we can really see the profoundness of the message and let them come together, right? So it's lovely to work on a team where Izzy's gifts are different than Chantel's and different from mine, so that when we can work collaboratively, they're really showing up in a different way so that we're getting the full message. And I think that was like such a huge piece of our time in Costa Rica, was allowing everyone's message to come through as we put a puzzle piece together to understand a situation, right? And so I really want to honor every single individual person, as this is your unique style. This is your unique way of it coming through, and it's going to enhance and it's going to grow as long as we give gratitude and thanks for how it's showing up now. So if we judge it instead of saying, thank you, I love you, you're amazing, thanks for showing up in my life. If we're not doing that, it's going to go flat. If it's just like, oh, you're not good enough, you're not as good as Shantel, then it's not going to work, right? We need to step into this space of trust and letting it be messy for a little bit. And I think that is so why I love doing group programs. Like, I'm so excited about Soul Rising, because when we bring a group together and we allow everyone to be uniquely themselves, that's when your spiritual gifts enhance. That's when you spiritually grow, because it's so clear. Like, don't worry about what they're doing. What are you doing? What did you get? Don't dismiss it. Like, we did a shamanic journey to meet your power animal in Costa Rica for part of the retreat. And it was so interesting, because what people came back with was like, well, I didn't get anything. I'm like, no, tell me more. And they're like, well, I did get this thing, but it wasn't supposed to be that way. I'm like, but it's supposed to be that way because it showed up for you the way it showed up for you. So let's look at that. Let's tune the microscope in. What does that mean to you? And so often they could go back, oh yeah, I get it. I get it now. That's the message. And so when it's moving away from dismiss, and into the state of, I honor it for how it shows up. That's when your spiritual gifts develop.
Yeah, and that was actually, I think, a beautiful awareness for the group, because they would come out and they're like, well, all I got was this color and that color, and there was a tree, and it was like, well, there's your message right there. So breaking down like the symbolism of it, what does it mean? And then the message is there within that. And so I really enjoyed that technique. And I think too, going back to like, we as Reiki practitioners, I think our clairs develop the same as like our practice, right? So we are all individual practitioners and we work Reiki in our own way. It's not like a cookie cutter modality. So we are all working it, and then our clairs come up in the same way. What is like putting that spotlight on you? What is resonating with me? What do I connect with? How is it showing up in my life? And honoring yourself and saying, I can hear, I can see, I can feel. And even if it's a little bit, focus on the one that you have the strongest connection with, allow that to develop, and then all the other ones that you're meant to work with will all show up as well. But it's about being open-minded and open-hearted and accepting and surrendering that this is just part of our natural state, that our human body has a really hard time connecting with, because we have our 5 primary senses, and now we have to think outside of those. So how do we bring in our energetic eye and our energetic feelings and our energetic touch and taste and all of it, and hearing all of it? So it's just expanding that thought process and that feeling so that we can all step into our truth of it.
Absolutely. And so let's just quickly finish out those last few spiritual gifts. We have clairgustience, which is clear taste. This one really shows up for the chefs, for the people who are working with food, just having that spiritual knowingness. Wow, this flavor combination with this would be amazing. They can taste it in their mouth before they even put it together. And then we have clairsent. Also, like, this is someone who's using their nose often. So the florist, the baker, the cook, someone who's really using their sense of smell. They know what combinations are going to go really well together in a spiritual sense before they even do it. So that's clairsent. Oftentimes this will show up for people if They've got, if they're doing a session and they smell cigar smoke and cigar smoke represents their past father, like that, it's like that you will have this smell that comes forward, but it means something to the client, right?
Yeah, I have an example of that one. So I don't always get smell, but I was driving up the hill near my home, and I don't know, I was just cruising, and suddenly my entire car filled up with the smell of my grandmother, of tortillas, and like her home and her food. And I was like, it actually really hit like my heart. I was like, oh my gosh, grandma, you're with me, because there is no restaurants where I was driving. I'm like in the hills, right? I shouldn't be smelling fresh tortillas and Mexican food in her home. And when I asked, like when I spoke to her, above me flew this entire flock of birds. And I was just, just in awe of that and giving thanks for her, visiting me and everything. But it is tuning into all those little synchronicities and recognizing those are the messages for you. And when we do that, you can really connect to spirit.
Yes. Yeah. Anything that notice it again and again and again, we're coming back to gratitude. No matter how small it's showing up, you want to give thanks for it. If you want to grow your spiritual gifts, step into a space of gratitude for them. And on the opposite note, like if they're coming on too loud and strong, ask them to tune it down. Tell them you're not available right now. And that's okay too.
I need to sleep.
Right, exactly. I don't know how many times. I mean, I was there for years. They would always wake me up in the middle of the night, and I'm like, "You guys, I can't. I have to sleep." And they would keep me up in the middle of the night, and they were like, "Well, then you need to tune in at 2 p.m. every day if you don't want us to wake you up at 2 a.m." I'm like, "Fine." Right? Like we can come up with a compromise.
Yeah, we can negotiate with you.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely.
We have to
But it's not
remind
our
them we're in
intention.
body. We need to sleep. We need to
Yeah.
rest.
So often it's like that, like they don't get that we have this physical container that we're in this time space spectrum where they're in that doesn't exist for them, right? And so to be in this container, like you don't understand physically how hard it is for you to wake me up for 2 hours every night. It's not acceptable, guys. Not okay.
Yeah, that's too funny.
Too funny. Well, there's one more spiritual gift that people often have, and it's claircognizant, meaning this clear knowing. And clear knowing is like you know the answer, you don't know why you know the answer. You don't understand how you got the answer, but it's the truth,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we've definitely had students with claircognizant, and their spiritual journeys are very simplistic, but they always have the answer. Right. And so
Yes.
a way to kind of describe this one for me, it really comes through often when I'm doing shamanic Reiki sessions, meaning that, like, for example, I was in Houston recently. Before I went to Costa Rica, I was in Houston doing some workshops at Lighthouse Reiki and Crystals. Phenomenal shop. Absolutely loved it. Will be back. And there was one workshop and I was going to demonstrate a cord cutting. And so I did a guided meditation for everyone in the beginning to develop their clairvoyance, to see where their cords are, and to energetically release them. So we did that for the first 25, 30 minutes of the workshop. And then I was like, all right, who still energetically knows that they still have more stuff, more energetic cords, things that they need support helping on? There was 3 left in class that were like, I've got more stuff. I need help. I'm like, great. So I sat them all next to each other, but gave them enough space room. There was lots of Reiki practitioners in the class. It's like, who wants to volunteer just to give them Reiki? And while I go do the shamanic side of things. And so we got the Reiki masters came forward to give them Reiki. And so each one of them had such different scenarios that showed up. For example, one had a noose around their neck, right? So when they try to pull it to cut it, it was making it tighter, right? So she didn't understand that because she's a beginner. She's never done this before. And I was like, all right, well, this is about free will. Are you safe to take it off? And she's like, she knew who it was connected to. I had to guide her to feel comfortable in holding it We didn't actually need to cut it. She just needed to hold it because she wasn't ready to let it go. But now it's not choking her, right? Okay,
Yes.
great. But it was this knowingness, oh, there it is. And the next person was lots and lots of cords, all kinds of cords everywhere. And it was like, actually, we're just going to unzip that energetic suit and let them all fall away at once. The next person had a spear coming out of her forehead. You know, it was an energetic attack from like past lifetimes. You know, so everyone had something displayed very differently. And I knew it, that claircognizant came first. Then it was the feeling. I could feel what it was, but I always knew before I saw or heard or felt. And so it was like, so it was very interesting to just kind of step into this. My clairsentience, my spiritual gifts are on 100%, showing up. And every time I went to a different person, it made perfect sense to them what I was feeling, experiencing, knowing, and then being able to support them in that. Right. So it's okay. Like, and that's the thing, like everyone is going to show up differently. And that's why I love teaching how to develop your spiritual gifts. And we're going to be doing so in the Soul Rising program, because once you have your ability to turn all the way on, then things are going to come through a lot faster, a lot easier to go, oh, this is what I'm sensing. Does that resonate with you? And you can have this interaction with your clients on such a different level.
Yeah, for sure. And I think what's important too is when we are in tune to our own body, is also how the guidance of knowing comes in, like in feeling. So, for example, I had a client I was working on, and I was almost finished with her session, but I just felt like there was something more. And then it was like my throat started activating, like I started coughing, and I was like, and at first, you know, I coughed and then it kept coming. I was like, okay, this isn't normal. So I tuned in and I said, you know, I asked, like, show me what I need to see. And so then it was like, okay, she had the same thing. Not, it wasn't a noose, but it was a belt. And so I explained to her and we went through the process of removing that. And when she was done, she was just like, oh my gosh, instantly what I was feeling was gone. And it's not like an energetic attachment, it's how I feel. So it's like the way I tune in. So if my throat acts up or I feel there's like a stab in the back or there's something physically that I'm connecting to, then I know to go to that person and feel into the space of that area. And it will show what it needs to be, what needs to be pulled out, cut, whatever it is. And yeah, so it was a profound session, but it's important for us to be able to tune in and not dismiss it. Like, oh, I have a back pain, you know, like what's happening back there? Well, that's not really you, it's them. Tune into that and it'll go away as
Yes.
you're working through it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think I love that, and know that, you know, it's all part of the development, you know, to trust yourself, trust what you're getting. And then at the end of the session, being able to let it go. It's not your story. It's not your work. So it's like being able to see your clients and going, this is your spiritual journey and this is mine. This is your stuff and this is mine. And may they be separated is really important to do. That's why we, you know, in even traditional Reiki, we learn how to brush off. We do that dry bathing because we want to let go and go, your journey is your journey and my journey is my journey. And anything that releases, may it go to Mother Earth for its reuse and recycling, right? Like let's compost all of those releases, that belt, that rope, that spear, whatever it may be. Let's just disintegrate it, give it back to the earth so that we're not taking it with us. We can't, this is where the empathy gets involved, because if we feel bad for our clients,
Yeah.
that's where we get into trouble. Once you are going, I feel so bad for you, let me take this for you, you're going to absorb it. And we don't want to do that. Like that's a big no. Don't take on your client stuff. Know that this is their spiritual journey, their lessons to learn, their gifts to receive. And if we get emotionally involved with them, then we're going to put it on us. And we don't want to do that. So we learn a lot about how to come to a crown chakra type of space to really see this. They need this. This is their lesson. They've got to learn from this. It's not mine to take.
And to help to empower them on their journey by having them call back their power, knowing that these energetic cords and attachments and stuff have been released. So when they leave, they're feeling lifted, they're feeling ready to go take on their life and their lessons, and it's not being left with us. And I think in the community, there's a lot of conversation about, oh, well, that if you're feeling, you're taking on, but you're not. You're only taking on if you allow yourself to take on, if you are allowing yourself to connect to the emotions, the experience of the client, versus saying, like you're explaining, like, this is theirs and this is mine. We come in strong and shielded, not coming in like, I'm going to take it all for you so you can go be good, and now I'm over here and heavy with it. It doesn't work like that. So go in and be shielded, but show up in your own power as a practitioner, knowing whatever shows up, I have this, and we have our spiritual team and our power animals, and everything is going to come forward when we need them, and to help us to do the work. And then when they leave, we clear our space, we clear ourselves, and we're good to go.
Yes. Yeah. I'm like, say it louder in the back for those who can't hear. You know,
yeah, like, we're good to go.
It is our free will that will take on our client stuff. And this is where we got to do the solar plexus work. This is why, like, it's so important in all of our programs. For example, in Soul Rising, we're going to work on those lower 4 chakras. If we can heal the solar plexus to know our self-worth, have self-respect, and our self-love, we're not going to take on anyone else's junk. We're not open and available to that. We have to do the self-healing to go, this is your stuff, this is my stuff. I don't want your stuff, but we're going to help release it for you and give it to the earth. I'm not taking it on personally. Okay, so that's a huge lesson right there. Right there.
It really is.
It really is. So know that, like, all of the spiritual gifts can tie into your Reiki practice. It definitely is like, it is what shamanic Reiki is all about. Shamanic Reiki is all about utilizing our spiritual gifts to their full capacity to help support our clients so that they can see, feel, hear, recognize what they're ready to let go and heal. And I think that's why I love doing what I do. In traditional Reiki, I was just talking with this. I think I was talking to my son about this. He just asked for his level 2. I'm like, well, we should talk about that. So in doing our sessions, where was I going with that? I just lost it for a second. And so in traditional Reiki, it's very much about, don't get attached to the story. Don't get attached to the story. Don't get attached to the story. And anything that shows up is a story, right? And that's a very Buddhist perspective. It's a very Buddhist way of looking at it. And for those of you who are practicing traditional Reiki and it works for you, fantastic. Because guess what? You're not going to get attached to anything because you're not utilizing your spiritual gifts. And it works great for a lot of people. I find that people in the West, meaning North America, Europe, Australia, the Western civilization, we weren't raised in an area where mindfulness and meditation were like part of our culture. Oftentimes, us in the West need the story so that we can release it and let it go. We need to understand where the cords were and what does it look like, so that they can go, oh, this noose around my neck, I can hold it in my hand and feel like I'm in control. And when I'm ready, I have the control to let it drop, let it go. You know, and so we're utilizing our spiritual gifts to support the client, and it's going to help them in their healing process and their healing journeys, versus, you know, traditional Reiki is very much, I don't see that, I don't hear that, I'm letting it go, we're just moving on, there's no discussion afterwards, it's done. You know, the Reiki is just Reiki. And that's where I love shamanic Reiki, because it's balanced. The shamanic part is allowing our spiritual gifts to come fully in. We're able to help release, pull out, give to Mother Gaia, have these communication with the spirits beyond. And then Reiki is that beautiful love and light energy that's going to fill the void, because everything where we release and shamanic the shamanic part is creating this space for like a vacuum, and it's now a hole, and we need to bring in the Reiki love and light energy to pack it and seal it and heal it and make the energy whole again. So I find that shamanic Reiki is so incredibly powerful to do this work, and it allows the client to be interactive in their healing process.
And to, like you're saying, stepping away from the story. When you were explaining that, I just want to clarify that it's not the practitioner that is holding to the story. It's people. It's, like society likes to hold on to their story. We have been, in a lot of ways, raised and conditioned to wear our traumas like a badge of honor, and that's our identity. And we travel through life with all of our experiences, and we don't release them. And it creates illness, and it creates disease, and confusion, and all of these behaviors in our lives. But when we are able to step into our empowerment, to release that story, to heal it, to forgive it, and to move on through practice with Reiki and having shamanic journeys, all these things going on, and being mindful of it, that is where all the true healing is happening for our clients and for ourselves. And so the sacredness of what we're doing is one of the parts I really love too, is we don't just step into our space like, okay, let's do this. There is the practice of entering a sacred ceremony of Reiki, but with shamanic Reiki, that I really love to honor. And so with that, it's a beautiful experience for our clients, and a new way of awakening on different levels for people that are seeking healing, because it's not a traditional way of, it's typically talk therapy, or it's, however they seek it. But this way is really becoming more informed and more mainstream for people, I think, because we're getting out there, and there's a lot of light workers and a lot of practitioners, and people are seeking this deeper healing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have the capacity in learning shamanic Reiki to provide that. And knowing that, we have to start with the basics. So in Soul Rising, we're really looking at the self-healing process, developing our spiritual gifts, developing how to journey, how to do a shamanic journey to meet our spirit team, our power animals, our spirit guides, the angels that we're going to work with. It's laying that foundation of self-healing through Reiki, through learning how to see the chakras and have them illuminate the path of healing for us, of going, where are we getting stuck? Is it in our self-love? Is it in our childhood wounds? Is it like, we're going to clean all of it up so that we can know this is my stuff. And so this is what I'm feeling is your stuff, because I know what my stuff is. We're letting go of all of that confusion when we're working on others. So Soul Rising is all about working on ourselves and laying the foundation, so that if you want to continue in learning the tools that we're talking about today, like energetic cords and how to heal those and how to release them and how to remove intrusive objects and how to shamanic journey for others and so much more, then we go on to the practitioner level and learn the tools. And then there's even an advanced level that's, let's just say it's advanced. So know that we've got this kind of outline, and this is the foundation for everyone. I have people who come to me like, well, I'm a medium and I want to take the advanced. I'm like, but you're still missing this childhood wounded stuff that's coming up for you constantly. You're still missing this part over here that's in Soul Rising. You still don't know how to take the information that you're getting through mediumship and honing it in and tracking like a shaman in the jungle, like a jaguar in the jungle. Do you know how to track your intention so precisely that you will get the answer, rather than just getting all of the mixed messages coming through? So that's why we do have people coming in who are beginners, and we have people coming in who have been in this practice for 20 years and want to hone their gifts. They want to get really clear so that when they do decide to bring in shamanic tools or go to the advanced, they're ready for it, right? And so I love walking this journey with everyone and watching the transformation. We have had, you know what, I was just reading over, we do assessments. Every time someone completes a module, they have to send me an assessment. How did we do? What did you like? What did you not like? And I love reading them because it also tells me, is it too much? Is it not enough? Like we've been doing this for years, and that is how we tweaked our programs. But every single assessment that we've gotten with this last group, it's like, oh my God, mind blowing. My personal transformation, my life is just off the hook. Like the testimonials within them are so validating for us, like that we are offering exactly what people need and developing their spiritual gifts and creating the space to walk with them. Everyone is always so impressed by our team, Izzy, Shantel, and I, being able to hold space for our students right exactly where they're at. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. Like in our programs, I just spent probably 5 hours this weekend trying to develop our call schedule to make sure every single person who signs up can make at least one call a week. That's the dedication we have to our students. And I love it. I love this work.
Absolutely. Me too. And the testimonies and watching the transformation. That is my favorite part. Seeing them come in all fresh and green and not knowing that they're excited, a little nervous. And then when they graduate and they're so empowered by what they released and like shifted out of and away from, is just, yes, there you are. Because then they can see their true self, their highest self. It's not only that we see it, but it's more important that they see it, they feel it, they're walking in it, and it's just like, there you are, and it's beautiful. And I know, because I was a student, I went through the programs, did it myself, and I'm amazed every day by all the things that I no longer resonate with.
Yes.
And I love it.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's so much easier to say no to things after going through the program, going, does this resonate or not? I don't want to participate in that family event or that concert that I was invited to, or whatever it may be. Like, it's so much easier to stand in your truth and honor who you are and say yes to the things that are in alignment and say no to the things that aren't. And it's such an amazing process to see a student who has been really struggling and like giving their power to mentors and teachers and like gathering certifications, and have us go, you have all of the answers. I don't.
Yes.
It's with your spirit team. It's with your subconscious. It's with your work. When was the last time you did a journey for yourself to ask your business guide what needs to come next, or ask your spirit team, how can you be a better mother? Or, how can you be a better partner? Or whatever the question may be, all of the answers are available to you. You no longer need someone on the outside to hold your hand. And it's just a really beautiful aha moment for students to walk through that phase of like, I need someone, I need someone, I need some. Oh, I can do this. I can do this for myself. Oh my Lord, look at this. I can do this. And I got these profound answers that are significantly changing my life. I'm blown away every time. And I'm so grateful to be able to witness that transformation. And you don't hear that from teachers very often, I don't think, because oftentimes the teacher always wants to be the teacher. I want to see all of my students go, I can do it. I can find all of the answers myself. And I've got this, and so you go through our programs, and by the end, my goal is so that you don't need me anymore. You don't need us anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that you can step into, for me, I think it's important, like the observer role, where you're able to then observe the story that's unfolding in your life or that you're releasing, versus always carrying it, and knowing you have the power. Those answers are coming through. You're connecting. And yes, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful program. And
give us a shout if you have questions. Thank you all so much for coming this morning. It was so good to connect with you now that we are back in the States. I'm so glad to be home. I was gone for way too long. 5 weeks away from my house was too much. Won't be doing that again, but we will be doing workshops and travel and possibly some upcoming retreats. So it was all worth it in the end, and I'm very glad to be home. So thank you all so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.